Introduction: The River of Liquid Memory. From the first anatomical dissections to modern hematology, traditional science has treated blood as a mere system of mechanical logistics. We have been taught to see it as a red and blind river, whose only biological function is to transport oxygen to cells, distribute nutrients, and sweep metabolic waste toward excretory organs. Under this mechanistic lens, the bloodstream is simply the advanced plumbing of the human body. However, observing this fluid through the prism of quantum physics, hydrodynamics, and sacred topology, that two-dimensional narrative collapses completely. Your blood is infinitely more than plasma and moving cells. It is the magnetic tape. Blood as magnetic tape. Stop to observe the composition of your vital flow. Water, which constitutes the vast majority of your plasma, is not a passive liquid. Biophysics shows us it can act as a hypersensitive liquid crystal, structured to store and transmit memory. Add to this the iron present in the core of hemoglobin, a metal with indisputable magnetism. What flows under pressure through your veins is, for all bioelectromagnetic purposes, a high-fidelity fluid storage medium. Blood collects, records, and transports the vibrational imprint of every thought you hold, every emotion you repress, and every ancestral trauma you inherited. It is a liquid archive, a database in constant update. It travels through 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels, carrying an encrypted message to every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. Fear, scarcity, vitality, and coherence are not just psychological abstractions. They transmute into measurable frequencies that alter the surface tension, conductivity, and magnetism of your flow. You are the bearer of the physical record of your own electromagnetic history. But here lies the greatest of mysteries. The analytical mind, trapped in linear logic and chronological time, is completely unable to read this code. The human intellect can analyze a blood count, but it is deaf to the symphony of quantum information within. Spirit as the decryption key. It pulses in the iron and water inside you. To access the cryptography of blood, a processing technology operating in much higher octaves is required. That decryption software is your own spirit. The spirit, understood as your purified observing consciousness, is the master key. It is the only force capable of reading the liquid code. When you manage to quiet the background noise of the reactive mind, your magnetic heart acts as the hardware that reads the tape, translating the dense language of blood into pure intuition, holographic revelations, and absolute certainties. This book is a manual to stop being an unconscious passenger of your own biology. In the following pages, we will discover how to purify the interferences of your lineage, how to alkalize the frequencies of fear, and how to use conscious intention to rewrite the information circulating inside you. You are about to dive into the river of your liquid memory to discover that the conscious matter inhabiting you is ready. It is waiting, in every heartbeat, for you to read its message and release its true potential. The decryption process begins now. Chapter 1: Iron and Cellular Magnetism. To understand the true nature of blood, we must leave the microscopic scale for a moment and raise our vision toward astrophysics. The universe does not manufacture heavy elements in the silent vacuum of space. It forges them in the thermodynamic womb of stars. Hydrogen fuses into helium, helium into carbon, and carbon into oxygen. This process of stellar nucleosynthesis continues, generating increasingly heavy elements and releasing immense amounts of energy that keep the star burning and simultaneously collapsing under its own gravity. But this cosmic engine has a mathematical and physical limit: iron. It is the turning point of stellar creation and destiny. When the core of a massive star begins to fuse silicon to create iron, the isotope iron-56, the reaction ceases to be exothermic and becomes endothermic. Iron is the turning point of stellar creation. It is the most stable element in the universe, the point of maximum binding energy per nucleon. The star can no longer sustain it. By producing iron, the star can no longer sustain the immense pressure of its own gravity. It collapses upon itself and explodes into a supernova, scattering this heavy metal throughout the fabric of space-time. Each atom of iron that today tints your bloodstream red was born in the death throes of a massive star billions of years ago. You carry the thermodynamic climax of the universe flowing through your veins. And it is not a poetic coincidence. It is a necessity of bio-quantum engineering. Consciousness required an element of supreme stability and unmatched electromagnetic properties to anchor itself in 3D matter. It required a magnetic core for its operation. The physics of iron, spin, electrons, and the porphyrin ring. In the heart of each of the 25 trillion red blood cells navigating your body right now, there is a masterfully designed protein, hemoglobin. And in the exact geometric center of each hemoglobin molecule, suspended like a jewel in the middle of a structure known as a porphyrin ring, there is a single iron atom, $. Mechanistic biology teaches us that iron is there simply because it has the chemical affinity necessary to reversibly bind to oxygen molecules. It binds in the lungs, travels through the arteries, and is released in the capillary tissues. End of story. But quantum mechanics tells an infinitely deeper story of this specific metal. The behavior of iron is dictated by the configuration of its orbital electrons and fundamentally by its spin. Quantum spin is an intrinsic property of subatomic particles that generates a magnetic dipole moment, Wien-Bold symbol. In other words, each electron spins and, in doing so, acts as a microscopic magnet in space. The interaction energy of this magnetic dipole in the presence of an external magnetic field, the math beef, is given by the fundamental equation bold symbol and c dot shameth della. In most biological elements, electrons pair up in their orbitals, and their opposite spins cancel each other out, neutralizing any net magnetism. But iron is a transition metal. In its free ionic state or in certain configurations within hemoglobin, it possesses unpaired electrons in its d' orbitals. These lone spins do not cancel. They add up. It is this quantum configuration that grants your blood its amazing capacity for electromagnetic interaction in the body. Each iron atom is a compass needle at the nanometer scale, floating in your internal ocean, perpetually sensitive to the invisible force fields that surround you. Your blood is not just a liquid, it is a biological ferrofluid. It is conscious matter in its most dynamic and reactive state, responding to the cosmic environment. Paramagnetism and diamagnetism, the binary pulse of blood. The cryptography of blood becomes even more fascinating when we observe how the act of breathing literally alters the magnetic state of your vital flow. When deoxygenated blood returns to the heart through the veins, the iron atom in hemoglobin is in a high-spin state with 4 unpaired electrons. This state is key for the cell. In this state, venous blood is paramagnetic. It is weakly attracted by external magnetic fields. It is in a state of vibrational receptivity. However, when you inhale and oxygen binds to that iron atom in the lungs, a miracle of quantum reconfiguration occurs. Oxygen forces the iron's electrons to pair up, altering their spin. Arterial blood, now rich in oxygen and ready to nourish the body, becomes diamagnetic. It is weakly repelled by external magnetic fields. Think of the metaphysical implications of this constant pulse. At every heartbeat, at every breath cycle, your total blood volume is oscillating between paramagnetism and diamagnetism. It is a liquid binary code, a magnetic 1 and 0 pulsing through your 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels. This continuous electromagnetic pulse is the metronome of your incarnation. It is the physical mechanism through which pure consciousness, the spirit that has no mass or charge, manages to grip physical matter. Without this constant magnetic oscillation in the core of hemoglobin, the spirit would have no traction over the biological vehicle. It would slip over it like water over glass. The magnetism of iron is the interface of your existence. It allows the subtle to command the dense and the infinite to experience the finite world. Telluric tuning and liquid grounding. Understanding that our blood is an oscillating magnetic conductor, we must ask, what primary magnetic field is it interacting with? The answer is beneath our feet. The Earth is a gigantic dynamo. The outer core of our planet, composed precisely of liquid iron and nickel in constant convection, generates the immense magnetosphere. This terrestrial magnetic field, is not static. It pulses, vibrates, and sings through Schumann resonances, the standing electromagnetic waves formed between the planet's surface and the ionosphere. Classical physics, through the Lorentz force, demonstrates what happens to a charged particle in motion, sakuda. It shows what happens when it moves with a velocity, (math-dalms), through a magnetic, (math-dalms), and electric, (math-dalms), field. The mathbia, Q, mathbf paus, and mathbf imes, and mathbf. Blood plasma is full of electrolytes, ions, traveling at high speed, and mathbft, moving through the unceasing magnetic field of the Earth, mathbft. The result of this equation within your body is the generation of tiny but constant electromotive forces throughout your circulatory system. You are literally generating electricity through your kinetic interaction with the planet's magnetism. This is the true bioquantum meaning of grounding or earthing in the human body. In many spiritual traditions, there is talk of the need to ground oneself, but it is often interpreted as a visual or psychological metaphor. It is not. It is a strict thermodynamic and electromagnetic necessity. When you walk barefoot on the earth or align your spine orthogonally, your blood flow enters sympathetic resonance. The iron in your hemoglobin tunes in to the planet's base frequency. This liquid grounding stabilizes the heart rate, reduces inflammation, an excess of positive charge trapped in the body, and dissipates mental static. It restores the natural electrical balance required for the optimal processing of conscious information. If you spend your days isolated from the Earth's magnetic field, living in concrete buildings that act as Faraday cages, wearing rubber-soled shoes, and exposed to disordered EMFs, the tuning of the iron in your blood is corrupted. The biological compass needle goes mad. Blood loses its geometric coherence. You feel lost. You feel disoriented and anxious because your internal magnetic tape is trying to read the static noise of civilization instead of the deep and stabilizing transmission of the Earth. You are a disconnected antenna. Reconnecting the iron of your blood to the telluric field is the first step toward reclaiming your biological sovereignty. The feng dimension of the bloodstream. For this magnetic fluid to transport the spirit's message with high fidelity, it cannot encounter resistance. Just as the external environment requires geometric order, the architecture of your circulatory system requires an absolute feng dimension. In fluid dynamics, blood exhibits non-Newtonian behavior in the vessels. Its viscosity changes depending on flow speed and pressure. In a state of relaxation and emotional coherence, the red blood cells, the iron carriers, travel separated from each other, gliding smoothly through the plasma like coins on an ice table. The flow is laminar, efficient, and magnetically silent for the entire system. But when you experience chronic stress, deep fear, or a prolonged state of emotional resistance, your plasma chemistry changes. It becomes acidic. Stress proteins alter the surface electrical charge of red blood cells, the zeta potential. Instead of repelling each other, erythrocytes attract and stack like piles of coins. This clinical phenomenon, known as rouleau formation, reduces the blood's capacity to transport oxygen and destroys the electromagnetic cryptography of the vital flow. The magnetic fields of individual iron atoms cancel each other out or create destructive interference. Blood ceases to be a ferrofluid and becomes magnetic mud. A collapsed internal topology worsens this problem. Poor posture, fascia hardened by trauma, and dead corners in your anatomy pinch blood vessels. Blood stagnates, and in stagnation, information rots. The spirit cannot write new codes of abundance or health on a magnetic tape that is tangled and rusted by inertia. Maintaining your body's feng dimension through spiral movement and expansive breathing ensures your magnetic highways are free of entropic friction. You become a superconductor of your own intention. Your blood is then able to carry the high-frequency commands of your consciousness to every cell without any signal loss. Vital attraction and repulsion, the magnetism of experience. We arrive now at the deepest implication of cellular magnetism, its effect on the macroscopic world you inhabit. Physics has taught us that the movement of charges generates magnetic fields, Ampere's law, and that changing magnetic fields induce electric currents, Faraday's law. This is the basis of our interactive reality. Your heart, pumping this paramagnetic and diamagnetic fluid at 5 liters per minute, acts as the central oscillator of an immense electromagnetic toroid that expands several meters outside your physical body. This field is not silent or neutral. It carries information. It radiates the exact frequency of your cellular iron. Here lies the physical principle behind the law of attraction. It is not sympathetic magic. It is induced magnetism. When you harbor thoughts of scarcity or resentment, fear alters your blood chemistry. The magnetic coherence of your iron falls. Your toroidal field shrinks, becomes chaotic, and emits a frequency of resistance. According to the laws of resonance and electrodynamics, this field will repel harmonic opportunities and attract situations of similar density, events that reinforce the entropic friction of your system. The exterior is always a mirror of the interior magnetism. It is a mathematical inevitability of the universal field. Conversely, when you cultivate the state of conscious matter, blood alkalizes. Red blood cells flow free. Iron, purified from chemical interference, becomes a pristine conductor. In this state, your toroidal field expands exponentially. The magnetism of your blood begins to interact with the quantum field of possibilities. You begin to experience synchronicities not because you seek them, but because your biological field drags them into your orbit. Right people and ideas are drawn to you with the same inevitability that iron filings fly to a powerful magnet. The spirit has learned to use blood physics to shape the surrounding matter. The enlightened blood. Science told us we were meat machines, operated by random chemical reactions. But the iron in our blood whispers the truth of stellar lineage. We are embodied electromagnetic oscillators, equipped with a circulatory system that is, in reality, a closed-loop magnetic resonance circuit. You are an active broadcaster. The first key to decrypting the message of blood is recognizing you are not a victim of genetics or circumstances. You have an electromagnetic control panel at your disposal. Through pure intention, spatial alignment, and breath mastery, you can alter the magnetic behavior of the 25 trillion iron atoms within you. But iron is only the physical support, the magnetic hard drive upon which information is written. To read the full source code of the cryptography of blood, we must look closer, beyond the atom and toward the biological architecture immersed in this fluid. We must enter the mathematical spirals of the species. The magnetic hardware is ready. It is time to examine the quantum software. We must dive into the helical structures where the history of your ancestors and the potential of your future are encoded in light. The journey into the DNA within the river of blood is the next frontier of your awakening as a sovereign being. Chapter 2. DNA and Epigenetics, the Source Code. In the previous chapter, we established the magnetic infrastructure of our vital fluid. We understood that iron, forged in the thermodynamic collapse of ancient stars, provides us with a paramagnetic and diamagnetic core capable of interacting with the electromagnetic field of the Earth and the cosmos. Iron is the virgin magnetic tape. It is the hard drive of your biology, the physical substrate upon which information can be recorded and erased. However, a hard drive without an operating system is simply a sophisticated metal paperweight. The magnetic tape requires a code that dictates how to structure matter, how to assemble proteins, and how to build the temple we inhabit. That source code, the master library of our incarnation, is deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA. For decades, mechanistic biology sold us a narrative of absolute determinism. We were taught that DNA was a relentless dictator, an unalterable script written at the moment of conception that determined with cold precision our health and personality. Under the central dogma of molecular biology, information flowed in only one direction, from DNA to RNA, and from RNA to protein. The human being was, according to this bleak vision, a passive victim of their heritage, a prisoner in a jail built with nitrogenous bases. But quantum physics and vanguard sciences have demolished those walls. The central dogma was incomplete. The molecule of life is not a closed and static instruction manual, it is a hyperdimensional keyboard of resonance. Your DNA does not dictate your destiny. It proposes probabilities. And the factor that decides which of those probabilities collapses into physical reality resides in the liquid, your blood. You have entered the domain of epigenetics. You are about to discover how your consciousness, your beliefs, and the topology of your own body act as the supreme programmers of your genetic code. The double helix is much more than a chemical structure. It is a masterpiece of sacred topology and a fractal antenna of high fidelity. The double helix as a fractal antenna. Before exploring how we rewrite the code, we must understand the physical machinery of DNA. At a geometric level, DNA is a masterpiece of sacred topology. It is not a linear structure. It is a double helix, a spiral that twists upon itself. In nature, the spiral is the most efficient configuration for packing and transmitting energy. But the genius of DNA goes beyond its three-dimensional shape. When the double helix wraps around proteins called histones, it forms chromatin, which in turn supercoils to form chromosomes. This repetitive structure at different geometric scales makes DNA a fractal. In engineering, a fractal antenna maximizes reception within a minimum volume. By being a biological fractal, DNA is designed to operate not only in the realm of chemistry, but in the full spectrum of quantum electrodynamics. We can conceptually model the reception capacity of this biological structure using the physics of directional helical antennas. The directive gain, G dollars, depends on diameter and turns. G approx 15 left in infrac 8, do ifracta. Your DNA possesses billions of turns, dados, packed in a nanometric space. This equation, applied to the quantum scale, reveals that the double helix is a very high-gain antenna calibrated to absorb and radiate photons. Biophysicist Fritz Albert Popp proved that DNA is the primary storehouse and emitter of biophotons in the human body. DNA absorbs light from the environment, stores it in its spiral structure like a quantum battery, and emits it to communicate with other cells at the speed of light. Therefore, the source code is not just a sequence of chemical letters, it is a hologram of stationary light. It is a fractal antenna tuned to receive cosmic information. Crucially, this antenna is submerged in the torrent of your blood. White blood cells carry this complete code navigating your veins, while free DNA strands float in your blood plasma, acting as wireless network microantennas that update the vibrational state of your body in real time. You are a living, breathing broadcasting station. The epigenetic factor, the end of determinism. If DNA is a fractal antenna containing all possible scores for the symphony of your life, who is the conductor? Who decides which genes are turned on, expressed, and which are turned off, silenced? The answer is the cellular environment. For the trillions of cells in your body, the absolute environment is the blood that bathes them. Here, epigenetics enters the stage, literally above genetics. Epigenetic science has shown that the environment, temperature, toxicity, nutrients, and most revolutionary emotions and thoughts alters gene expression without changing the DNA sequence. This shift in paradigm restores sovereignty to the conscious observer of the system. Imagine the human genome as the immense keyboard of a piano with thousands of keys. The DNA inherited from your parents provides the piano. Genetic determinism claimed the keys played themselves automatically. Epigenetics proves that you, through your consciousness and interaction with the environment, are the pianist of your life. You decide whether you are going to play a funeral march of disease and premature aging or a sonata of vitality, regeneration, and longevity. The physical mechanism of this control is elegant. There are chemical tags, like methyl groups, CH3, that attach to DNA. DNA methylation acts as a physical lock, silencing specific genes. On the other hand, histone modification can tighten the genetic thread, hiding it, or loosen it so the gene activates and produces proteins. But what controls the distribution of these chemical locks? The chemical and electromagnetic composition of your blood is the primary signal that orchestrates the entire epigenetic landscape. Transduction of spirit into chemistry. Spirit has no mass. A thought does not weigh on a scale. How then can an immaterial belief attach a physical methyl group to a DNA strand and heal or sicken a body? The process is called biological transduction, and it occurs in milliseconds. When your consciousness processes a perception, the brain acts as the primary translator. If you interpret your environment as hostile, or hold beliefs of unworthiness, fear, or resentment, Your hypothalamus and pituitary gland instantly release a cascade of neuropeptides and stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, into the bloodstream. Your blood, now charged with the chemical signature of threat, bathes your cells. The cell membrane, the true brain of the cell, has thousands of receiving antennas. When these antennas detect cortisol, they send an alarm signal to the nucleus. DNA responds by contracting. Proteins fold into defense configurations. Epigenetic markers reorganize to turn on genes for survival and inflammation. You are preparing for war. Conversely, when you cultivate a state of internal certainty, gratitude, and heart coherence, the brain secretes oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins. This new liquid alchemy sends a message of cosmic safety to the cell membrane. DNA relaxes and unwinds. Genes for cell repair, telomerase, and growth are activated. You are thriving. Your thoughts are not private events in your skull. They are programming commands that materialize in your blood and rewrite your biological destiny at every moment. You are the epigenetic architect of your own incarnation. By choosing your state of being, you choose the genetic expression that will define your physical experience. Writing on water, the quantum substrate. While neuropeptide chemistry explains the mechanical mechanism, quantum physics invites us a level deeper. Blood plasma is 90% water. Water within biological systems is not an inert solvent. It is structured water. In zones where water interacts with biological surfaces like DNA, it enters the fourth phase or exclusion zone, EZ. In this state, water formula moves from H2O to H3O2, forming hexagonal crystalline networks that exclude impurities and act as batteries storing electromagnetic charge. Your blood is a river of liquid crystal. Before a thought triggers a hormone, it generates an electromagnetic wave in your toroidal field, sensed by your water. The structured water of your blood plasma picks up that frequency immediately through harmonic resonance. Pioneer Masaru Emoto offered a poetic visual of this. Water exposed to love formed sacred geometries, while water exposed to hate formed chaotic structures. Disparaging yourself destroys the crystalline symmetry of your plasma. You are dirtying the magnetic tape. DNA, an antenna floating in this same water, receives the corrupted signal and responds by closing its light circuits. For the cryptography of blood to be high frequency, you must write in your water with purified consciousness. The creative word instantly alters your vital flow's molecular structure. Mathematical certainty of your connection with the great central sun structures blood plasma into perfect geometries, making it an unbeatable conductor for your cell's light. You are no longer just a biological entity. You are a conscious, fluid, dynamic system capable of self-structuring through the power of intentional observation. The Feng dimension at molecular scale. Throughout this corpus, we have spoken of the importance of topology and spatial order at a macroscopic level. We learned to align the spine, to open dead corners, and restore conductivity. Now we must apply this to the nanoscale. We must establish the Feng dimension inside the cell. Vital energy cannot flow in a cluttered environment. At a cellular level, the equivalent of a dirty dark room is oxidative stress and acidosis. Healthy blood operates in a narrow pH range, slightly alkaline between 7.35 and 7.45. When we maintain shallow breathing and harbor bitterness, blood pH drops. It becomes acidic. In an acidic environment, cell membrane voltage plummets. Red blood cells lose their surface charge and clump, interrupting microscopic circulation. Oxygen, the electron donor and biophoton carrier, cannot reach deep tissue. This is the absolute collapse of internal feng shui at a molecular level. You have created a dark, unventilated basement for your DNA to inhabit. It cannot breathe. In these conditions of suffocation and acidity, methyl groups attach en masse to repair sequences, turning them off. The double helix twists into defensive configurations. The antenna folds and loses the signal from the quantum field. To express your potential, you must clear the space. Molecular Feng dimension requires oxygenation. It requires alkalization through emotional mastery. Emotions like compassion have a measurable alkalizing effect and pure nutrition. When you clean the biological terrain, plasma becomes transparent. DNA unfolds like a lotus flower. The fractal antenna stretches and regains its perfect Q factor. Only then can epigenetics work miracles. The quantum Zeno effect and fixing reality. If we have the power to rewrite our code through the blood environment, why is it so hard to heal or change a personality pattern? Why does the new epigenetic score seem to vanish when we are distracted? The answer lies in the perseverance of the observer and a phenomenon known as the quantum Zeno effect in particle physics. The Zeno effect demonstrates that continuous observation of an unstable quantum system can freeze its temporal evolution. If you measure an unstable particle repeatedly at very short intervals, it never decays. Consciousness freezes the system. Your body is a quantum system in constant fluctuation, reflecting your inner gaze. If you spend 40 years observing yourself through the lens of weakness or inherited disease, your observation executes a biological Zeno effect. You are freezing the disease's epigenetic tags in place. You don't give them quantum time to transmute. The universe offers new health probabilities, but your belief collapses the wave. To rewrite your blood source code, and sporadic flash of positive thought is not enough. You must apply a new Zeno effect anchored in the Feng dimension and perfect health. You must sustain conscious observation of your biology as an invulnerable system with such tenacity that you force epigenetic tags to reorganize permanently. You must refuse to provide the voltage of your attention to the old code. When you stop observing destructive patterns, you release particles from the pressure of your gaze, allowing them to dissolve. By fixing your gaze on vitality and connection to the great central sun, you freeze that new golden reality in your blood's matrix. From individual antenna to ancestral memory, you have understood the machinery. You know iron provides magnetism and structured water provides the recording medium. You know DNA is the light antenna that winds and unwinds under your neuropeptides and quantum observation. You are the programmer in the center of the control room of your own life, managing the signal. However, examining the magnetic tape of your blood, you will realize the hard drive was not delivered blank at birth. It came with pre-installed code. Before your first conscious thought, your blood and epigenetic markers were vibrating with the frequencies of those who preceded you. The history of your blood is ancient. The fears of a great-grandfather, the scarcity of a grandmother, the silenced traumas and burning passions of your lineage, all are written, not in metaphors, but in real chemical tags on your chromosomes and in your magnetic field's standing waves. You are not alone in your bloodstream. You travel with your biological ghosts. To write the future freely in your vital flow, you must first become a cryptographer of the past. You must learn to read the code of your ancestors, honor their resistance, and through an act of bio-quantum will, erase lines that no longer serve you. The work of purification begins now. We prepare to face lineage memory. Chapter 3. Lineage and Quantum Memory. A romantic and deeply rooted illusion exists in the human psyche, the idea of the tabula rasa. We believe that at birth we emerge as a blank canvas, ready to be filled by our own experiences. However, quantum physics and thermodynamics reveal an overwhelming truth. You do not arrive empty. You arrive saturated with information. In the precise instant you take your first breath and your heart autonomously pumps the first surge of oxygenated blood, your bloodstream is already a millennial library. The magnetic tape of your iron is not virgin. It comes pre-recorded. Your structured plasma water contains echoes of storms that occurred long before you had a name. You are the most advanced end of an uninterrupted biological continuum. Through the cryptography of your blood, you carry the quantum memory of your entire lineage. To become the architect of your destiny, you must first recognize that you are operating a vehicle that still obeys the commands of previous drivers in the lineage. You must learn to read the ghosts in your bloodstream, not to be their victim, but to become the electromagnetic redeemer of your own history. Mechanistic biology has failed to see that trauma is not just a psychological shadow, but a structural alteration. This alteration is transmitted from generation to generation through the blood. Ghosts in the bloodstream, the epigenetics of trauma. We previously established that epigenetics is the mechanism through which the environment and consciousness turn genes on or off via chemical tags. Science has recently discovered, and mystical traditions have known for millennia, that these tags are inherited. They are not erased at the moment of conception, but travel with us. Consider the famous Dutch hunger winter study. Women who suffered extreme famine during pregnancy gave birth to children who, decades later, had disproportionate rates of obesity and schizophrenia. Most amazingly, their grandchildren, born in times of plenty, carried the same starvation markers. Their DNA was silenced the same way. Biologically, the grandmother's blood, charged with terror cortisol, altered the epigenetic structure of the egg forming in her daughter's fetus, the same egg that would become the grandson. Trauma is a thermodynamic alteration. The wars, exile, or terror experienced by your ancestors caused massive methylation in their DNA. Today, when you experience irrational panic or an incomprehensible sadness that does not correspond to your life events, you are not just experiencing your own imbalance. You are reading a corrupted file in your blood's cryptography. It is the iron of your erythrocytes resonating with the magnetic field of unprocessed ancestral terror. Quantum entanglement through time. To understand how this memory operates, we must abandon the linear idea of time and enter the world of quantum entanglement. When two particles interact, their states remain linked regardless of distance. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. This principle of non-locality governs your biological heritage. Mathematically, if we have an entangled system of two biological cells, ancestral and descendant, the state de jure APSI angle dollar is described as an inseparable superposition. Dines en PSI angle, jud frac NSQRT, ju pero angle, A, zar down arrow angle, D. Ja down arrow angle, A, ju pero angle, D pi. Separation in time is as irrelevant as separation in space for the field. You and your ancestors share the same basic genetic substrate and field resonance. At a subatomic level, your grandparents' consciousness and trauma are entangled with your own morphogenetic field. They are not in the past. Physics postulates that past, present, and future coexist as overlapping probabilities in the vacuum. When your grandmother suppressed a cry of pain, that electromagnetic energy did not disappear. The first law of thermodynamics forbids the destruction of energy. It only allows transformation. The shockwave of that unvoiced cry was stored as piezoelectric tension in her fascia, methylated her DNA, and was transmitted forward. That silenced cry flows through your veins today. You are the quantum receptacle of the undissipated energy of your lineage. Your blood acts as the conductive medium through which the entire family attempts to regain its thermodynamic balance. You are the laboratory where the past seeks to become light once again. Signal noise and systemic friction. In the Feng dimension, spatial order and channel cleanliness are non-negotiable for pure conductivity. But what if the channel is physically aligned, yet the fluid is full of informational white noise? In signal theory, the signal-to-noise ratio, SNR, determines how clearly a receiver can decode a message. Bas SNR 10 e log left efrac peak key ext peak key ext eit beat. The great central sun constantly sends the signal Peteris praus extra of geometric perfection and health. But if the epigenetic noise power, par x tau, the sum of inherited traumas and scarcity beliefs, is too high, the SNR drops. The spirit tries to decrypt the message, but the magnetic tape is dirty. As a result, the cosmic signal is drowned out. You consciously desire peace, but your subconscious, the voice of your encrypted biology, is in high alert, waiting for the next war. This noise manifests as inexplicable self-sabotage. It is the destructive relationships or the autoimmune disease that ignites in the same decade your grandfather fell. You are attempting to render high-definition 3D software using an operating system loaded with ancestral viruses or epigenetic malware. This friction consumes the energy that should be used for your own creation. To free your life, you must act as the primary debugger of this ancient code, cleaning the blood's registry. You are the ping zero of your lineage. This might seem condemning. If we are so entangled with the past, what hope do we have for real free will? This is where the observing consciousness intervenes to break the thermodynamic chain. You are not just a victim. You are the resolution point. You are the evolutionary vanguard of thousands of years of survival. Your entire ancestry endured plagues and cruelty for one purpose, so that today, in this millisecond, you could be here. Understanding this shifts the perspective to supreme empowerment. You are the family tree's central processor. When you align in ping zero, you become the quantum singularity of your lineage. In quantum mechanics, a wave function does not collapse until a conscious observer intervenes. Your family's wounds have remained as unresolved probability waves for generations, bouncing through biological time. When you observe an inherited pattern with magnetic neutrality, you act as the final observer. By bringing the photon of consciousness to the darkness of the inherited pattern, you force the ancestral trauma's wave function to collapse. You break the destructive entanglement. Healing does not require traveling to the past. It requires anchoring brutally in the present. Your blood is the crucible where the past is redeemed. The dynamics of ancestral resonance. We must delve deeper into the frequency mechanics of this heritage. Every ancestor who did not complete their emotional processing left a residual charge in the field. This charge acts like a magnet that attracts similar events into your life. It is not destiny. It is a resonance search for thermodynamic resolution. If your ancestors lived in a state of perpetual migration and displacement, your blood may carry a homeless frequency. You might find it impossible to feel at peace in one place, or your physical body may struggle to assimilate nutrients as the system is optimized for a transience that no longer exists in your reality. The magnetic iron in your blood is like a tuner that has been locked on a specific station for a century. Even if you want to listen to the Abundance FM station, the mechanical lock of the lineage keeps you on Survival AM. This creates a tremendous internal tension, a psychological heat that eventually inflames the tissues. To change the station, you must apply a force greater than the lineage's inertia. This force is not willpower in the egoic sense, but the coherent intent of the spirit. By consciously changing the spin of your iron through high-frequency emotions, you create a phase shift that disconnects you from the old station. The chemical library of blood. The plasma contains more than just hormones. It carries the specific signatures of every significant event in your family history. When your father felt the sting of betrayal, he released a specific cocktail of neuropeptides. These chemicals acted as ink on the epigenetic pages of his sperm, which then became you. This means you literally have the chemical taste of your ancestors' experiences. Sometimes, a sudden craving for a certain substance or a visceral rejection of a specific environment is not yours. It is a memory recall from the plasma. Your blood is a liquid sensory organ that remembers things you never lived. In the 3D world, we think we are making choices based on logic. In reality, 95% of our daily choices are guided by the chemical preferences of our blood's library. We choose partners who mirror the familiar chemistry of our lineage, even if it is toxic. We repeat patterns because the blood finds comfort in the known. Breaking this requires a chemical reset. By alkalizing the blood and saturating it with the nectar of higher emotions, DHEA, oxytocin, we make the old library unreadable. The ink of the ancestors fades in the presence of the new light. You are not erasing their existence, but you are reclaiming the blank pages. Cleaning the line, conscious demethylation. Molecular biology gives us immense hope. Epigenetic marks are reversible. The chemical locks can be removed through demethylation. While nutrients help, the most powerful demethylating agent is a high-coherence emotional field. When you generate sustained gratitude, your heart's toroid sends an expansive signal. This resonance physically alters the surface tension of your plasma water and changes the spin state of cellular iron. The cell membrane interprets this as a war is over signal. It is a biological ceasefire. Under this new directive, cellular enzymes begin to clip the methyl groups from the DNA. The ancestral trauma code is physically erased. Repair genes, longevity genes, and expanded perception genes unwind and ignite. This is the miracle of spiritual epigenetics. When you heal a pattern, you don't just improve your life. Due to non-local entanglement, your healing reverberates through the family network. By purifying your own blood, you alter the vibrational memory of the entire tree. You become the point where the poison of the lineage is transmuted into the medicine of the future. The biological weight that felt like a curse is revealed as the raw material for your greatest evolutionary leap. You are free. Practices for quantum lineage purification. Rewriting the cryptography of your lineage requires a direct biophysical intervention in your plasma. Use these 3 advanced practices to clear the signal. Neutral observation. Magnetic dispassion. Trauma survives through resistance. When an inherited toxic emotion arises, don't fight it. Be a glass wall. Observe the thermal sensation and the heartbeat without a label. It is not your sadness. It is a low-frequency wave passing through your system. By refusing to judge, you remove the friction. Without fascial resistance to hit, the trauma's kinetic energy exhausts itself and dissipates into the zero-point field. Thermodynamic ancestral forgiveness. Grudges are lethal bottlenecks. Holding hate toward those who passed you a corrupt code is like holding a live high-voltage wire. Forgiveness is a thermodynamic necessity. Visualize the ancestor as a biological system, also infected by malware they didn't know how to uninstall. In your heart, decree, I accept the voltage of the pain. I understand the cryptography of the error. I cut the power supply to this wound. Exhale deeply to alkalize your blood. This dissolves the rouleau, clumping, of red blood cells. The blood flows laminarly again. The ancestral channel is finally clear. Epigenetic overwriting, the new water code. Use your internal fluids to program abundance. Every morning before eating, perform a session of fire and water breathing, rapid hyperventilation, followed by deep breath holds. While holding, focus your mind on an intention of absolute coherence, total sovereignty. Feel the intention as heat in your chest. This magnetism instantly structures your blood water into perfect hexagons. Your blood acts as a high-resolution carrier wave, delivering this new epigenetic command to the nucleus of every cell. You are installing a new radiant operating system that is incompatible with the old ghosts. The passing of the torch. Breaking the cycles of ancestral pain is the supreme act of evolutionary loyalty. Your ancestors did not survive millennia for you to drown in their residual panic. They survived so that you, gifted with the understanding of conscious matter, could finally clean the channel and turn up the receiver's volume to the maximum. As you practice conscious demethylation, the density in your physical body vanishes. The defensive posture of your family line begins to straighten on its own. Your DNA unfolds. Your blood becomes pristine, light, and highly alkaline. You are no longer the echo of a painful story. You have recovered the tape's virginity. The iron of your hemoglobin now vibrates without the past's white noise, ready to tune exclusively to the great central sun's score. But for this new purity to be maintained and distributed with the correct pressure to every corner, we must examine the great central engine of the entire system, the pump of life. The organ that reads, decrypts, and propels life is the bridge where Newtonian physics yields to pure alchemy. It is time to enter the vault of the great decryptor. The heart is not just a pump, it is the master processor of the blood's code. Let us descend into the rhythmic sanctuary of the internal monarch. Chapter 4. The Heart, the Great Decryptor. We have navigated the tributaries of our own history. We have examined how star-forged iron acts as the magnetic tape of our vital fluid, and how ancestral trauma and limiting beliefs print epigenetic locks on the DNA traveling in our plasma. Blood is, without doubt, a hyper-dense archive of quantum information, but it needs a reader. Materialist biology, in its drive to reduce the majesty of life to industrial plumbing, convinced us the heart was simply a mechanical pump, a hollow, blind muscle whose only thermodynamic function was to generate hydrostatic pressure to push viscous fluid through tubes. This is perhaps the greatest biophysical heresy of modern science. To truly decrypt the cryptography of blood, we must dismantle the fallacy of the mechanical pump. We must elevate our understanding to observe the heart as what it truly is, the central electromagnetic vortex of your incarnation, the quantum processor of your biology, and the only organ designed to read and rewrite lineage memory. The fraud of the mechanical pump and the implosive vortex. Let us stop for a moment to observe the mathematical impossibility of the classic cardiovascular model. The human heart weighs approximately 300 grams. Its official task is to pump blood through a network of capillaries that, if unraveled, would span over 100,000 kilometers. That is enough to go around the Earth twice and a half. Blood is a thick, non-Newtonian fluid, more viscous than water. If a civil engineer tried to pump such a fluid through 100,000 kilometers of pipes against monumental friction, it would require an engine the size of a room. A 300-gram muscle at low biological wattage could not, under Newtonian laws, generate enough pressure. It would fail. If the heart functioned purely by mechanical propulsion, it would tear itself apart at the first beat. So how does blood flow? The answer lies in advanced fluid dynamics and the hidden geometry of the cardiac muscle. Anatomist Francisco Torrent Guasp discovered the heart is a single continuous muscular band folded into a spiral double helix. The human heart possesses the same fractal geometry as DNA and galaxies. It is a spiral. Due to this helical structure, the heart does not push blood through a pressure explosion. The heart squeezes blood through a twisting motion, like wringing a towel, creating a vortex. It uses the physics of implosion to move the liquid life. Victor Schauberger demonstrated that water, when moving in a spiral, generates an implosion force. Implosion cools the fluid, structures its molecules, reduces friction to almost zero, and generates immense electromagnetic energy. Blood is sucked into the heart, spins in a perfect vortex, and is propelled without resistance. The electromagnetic processor and Maxwell's equations. When deoxygenated blood, charged with paramagnetic ion and saturated with the epigenetic noise of ancestral trauma, enters the right atrium, it enters the resonance chamber of the most powerful magnetic generator in your biology. The heart has over 40,000 sensory neurons that give it an independent brain. It is capable of perceiving, remembering, and making decisions without consulting the cerebral cortex. Furthermore, myocardium cells, cardiomyocytes, are highly polarized, generating a massive electrical current with each simultaneous depolarization. By Maxwell's laws, a time-varying electrical current generates a surrounding magnetic field. The magnitude of the magnetic flux, pi biru, through an open surface, S-turns, delimited by cardiac tissue, is described as Tis tarifibi, wudik, nint ester mathbf, jastidat, dg mathbfp. The magnetic field, and mathbfdalo, emanating from your heart, does not stop at your skin. It is a massive toroid that expands radially into quantum space. It is in this precise millisecond of electromagnetic intersection where the heart operates as the great decryptor. The heart's magnetic field reads the vibrational signature of cellular iron and plasma water surface tension. It identifies the weight of inherited melancholy and cortisol. Literally, the heart extracts data from the blood. Here lies the magic of your free will. The heart is not a passive reader. It is a read-write unit. If your consciousness is anchored in the present, held in the feng dimension of an aligned spine and deep breath, your heart emits absolute coherence. Upon passing this vortex, the iron atom realigns and DNA demethylates. Heart coherence, translating code into intuition. How does the heart transmit the message it read in our blood? Through a language medical science calls heart rate variability, HRV, but which mystics have always called intuition. Even at rest, the heart does not beat like a perfect metronome. The interval between two consecutive beats fluctuates constantly in milliseconds. This variability is the mathematical measure of your nervous system's flexibility. When you are under the domain of primitive biology, reacting to the cryptography of fear, your heart rhythm is erratic and chaotic. This is incoherence. In incoherence, the cardiac processor is saturated. It cannot read the message. It only sees static. Conversely, when you intentionally cultivate sincere appreciation, geometric gratitude, or sustained peace, HRV draws a perfect, harmonic sine wave. You are in heart coherence. In this superconducting state, the heart decodes quantum data and sends it to the brain via the vagus nerve. It arrives as a holographic certainty. That is the nature of true intuition. It is not a blind emotional hunch or logical analysis. It is the direct result of your heart decrypting an anomaly in the electromagnetic field of your blood. It is the solid voice that tells you to stay away or invest. Intuition is the spirit's voice read through cardiac machinery. The pulse is a carrier wave. To transmit information like audio or video over long distances through empty space, you need a carrier wave. A carrier wave is a constant high-frequency electromagnetic wave that by itself contains no useful information. To make info travel, you must mount the original signal onto the carrier through modulation. We can mathematically represent an amplitude-modulated wave where $ST is the output signal, $A$ is the carrier amplitude, $MT is the message signal, and omega is the carrier angular frequency. Tau ST, AC 1 plus MT, ICOS omega YC T TYs. In your biological body, your heart beats approximately 100,000 times a day. Each mechanical contraction generates an acoustic pressure wave and an electromagnetic pulse, sa se cos, omega shi CT. That continuous beat is your cosmic carrier wave. By itself, the sound is only the vehicle. The message signal, your MT dollars, is the vibrational quality of your blood flow in that exact microsecond. It is the ion state. Every time your heart beats, it modulates this information and transmits it through the 100,000-kilometer network, impregnating every cell and fascia with the new code. But transmission doesn't stop at the skin. The modulated magnetic field crosses the threshold and radiates into the three-dimensional quantum field. At every beat, you transmit your own blood cryptography to the universe. If your blood is charged with MT victimization, your beat amplifies that signal. But when you allow the heart to purify the flow, your MT down becomes the signal of enlightened matter. You use your biological wave to restructure space magnetically. The thymus gland, the University of Defenses. We cannot speak of heart alchemy without mentioning the glandular structure sitting directly above it, the thymus. From an endocrinological perspective, the thymus is the university of your immune system. It is where immature white blood cells, T lymphocytes, travel to learn to differentiate between self and non-self. Mechanistic medicine claims the thymus atrophies into fat in adulthood, assuming it's a hardware piece only needed in childhood. However, in bioquantum physics, organs atrophy from electromagnetic and topological starvation. The collapse of the thoracic cage, slumped shoulders, smothers the thymus, cutting the flow. What destroys it at a quantum level is the lack of magnetic coherence. The thymus matures lymphocytes by listening to the heart's field. When the heart is in chronic stress, the thymus receives a corrupt signal. Confused T cells graduate, unable to distinguish between healthy body tissue and invading tissue. It is a disaster. The result is autoimmune disease. Restoring the heart's toroidal field through high emotions is a biomedical intervention to resuscitate the thymus. When the heart pumps in coherence, its field bathes the thymus in high-frequency photons. T cells regain their discernment. Your immune system stops warring against itself. Decryptor tuning practices. For your heart's vortex to read, clean, and transmit your blood cryptography with divine precision, you must calibrate the machine. This requires withdrawing attention from the mental processor, the brain, and descending consciousness into the chest's engine room. Apply these three technologies to optimize cardiac decryption, toroidal friction, magnetic centering. Rub your palms vigorously for 10 seconds to concentrate superficial charge. Separate them 10 centimeters in front of your sternum. Close your eyes and focus on that warm, magnetic sensation. You are forcing your nervous system to redirect current away from the ruminant mind. Vortex breathing, coherence modulation. Once anchored, match air rhythm with myocardium geometry. Inhale counting to 6 seconds, visualizing blood spiraling inward and imploding. Exhale for 6, visualizing the carrier wave expanding in 360 degrees. This 5 cycles per minute rhythm forces maximum coherence. Source code infusion, the question to the vortex. The heart uses holographic language. In deep coherence, drop a problem or decision into your chest's magnetic space. Don't think of a solution. Listen to your blood's pulse. A cosmic yes feels like warm expansion and lightness. A no feels like heavy blood and contraction. The sovereign of the flow. The intellect has ruled too long, analyzing reality through fear and paranoid calculation. It has tried to force the river of life into straight lines, ignoring the spiral geometry of the universe. By returning authority to your chest's vault, you align with the underlying physics of creation. You become the master of flow. The heart is the gatekeeper. It is the biological enigma machine that takes the dense ancestral code flowing through your veins and bathes it in the light of compassion and geometric coherence, transforming it into pure, radiant matter. You have learned how code is rewritten and transmitted to the outer world. But the path to vital flow enlightenment is not free of dangers. Corrosive chemistry threatens daily to turn off this electromagnetic processor. Low vibration frequencies act like computer viruses designed to collapse the DNA antenna. To protect decryption, we must understand the microscopic enemy. The battle for code begins. Chapter 5: Code Infections, the Chemistry of Fear. We've established that your bloodstream is a river of liquid memory, a high-fidelity magnetic tape where iron, structured water, and DNA combine to store and transmit the light of consciousness. We have seen how the heart acts as the great quantum processor, decrypting this information with every single beat. However, in any computer or telecommunication system, a pristine code and a powerful processor do not guarantee successful transmission. Every open system is susceptible to hacking. In the bio-quantum universe of your incarnation, malware is not an abstract program. It is a very real, dense, and destructive biochemical cascade. It is the chemistry of fear. Materialistic biology treats stress, anxiety, and trauma as mere psychological imbalances or evolutionary survival responses. But from the perspective of blood cryptography, sustained fear is an infection of the source code. It is a low-frequency virus infiltrating the plasma and rewriting epigenetic locks. It depolarizes cellular membranes and destroys the geometry of your internal antenna. If you do not learn to identify, isolate, and purge these electromagnetic infections, your spirit will go blind. It will try to read your body's state, but will only find static, acidity, and thermal noise. You are about to descend into the anatomy of entropy. The low-frequency virus, HPA axis infiltration. For a computer virus to take control, it must trick the operating system into granting administrative permissions. In your biology, that backdoor is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal, HPA, axis. The original design of the HPA axis is a masterpiece of 3D survival. If a predator stalks you, your primitive brain, the amygdala, detects it. Instantly, it sends a massive override signal. The hypothalamus releases CRH, traveling to the pituitary, which sends ACTH to the adrenal glands. In fractions of a second, your adrenals flood your bloodstream with adrenaline and cortisol. This chemical injection is an extreme emergency protocol. Cortisol acts as a system command. It shuts down all processes not vital for fighting or fleeing in the next 3 minutes. It turns off the immune system and the digestive system. Most tragically for your evolution, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, the seat of higher consciousness, empathy, and quantum connection. Blood leaves the higher centers and rushes to the limbs. Biologically, during this chemical hijack, you cease to be a creator of realities. You become a reactive animal trying to avoid annihilation. The catastrophic problem of modern humanity is that this 3-minute emergency protocol has become stuck in the on position. We no longer flee lions, yet the primitive brain cannot distinguish. It sees no difference between physical death and a financial crisis, a relationship conflict, or a boss's email. We live in chronic subclinical stress. Consequently, your blood is perpetually infected by survival chemistry. Chronic cortisol travels through your 100,000 kilometers of vessels, acting as a data corruption virus. It closes cellular receptors to subtle frequencies. It forces your DNA to coil defensively, methylating, turning off genes for regeneration and longevity. The great central sun continues to emit codes of order and abundance, but your cortisol-infected blood responds with a read error. System busy surviving. No bandwidth available. Oxidative stress, electron theft and antenna oxidation. When fear chemistry dominates the bloodstream, cellular metabolism becomes inefficient, producing toxic byproducts, free radicals. A free radical is a molecule that has lost an outer electron. In electromagnetism, electrons hate being unpaired, except in specific transition metals like iron. A free radical is a desperate entity. As it travels through your bloodstream, it acts as a cyber pirate. It violently crashes into healthy cell membranes, plasma proteins, and even your DNA's double helix, stealing electrons to stabilize itself. We call this subatomic looting oxidative stress. Literally, oxidative stress rusts your bioquantum machinery like oxygen rusts metal. When a free radical steals an electron from a cell membrane, it destroys that membrane's electrical conductivity. The cell loses its optimal voltage. Remember, your blood is a ferrofluid. The iron inside your red blood cells requires a stable electromagnetic environment to pulse between paramagnetic and diamagnetic states. Massive oxidative stress interferes with the quantum spins of these metals. Your magnetic tape becomes demagnetized. The record of your divine identity is erased, replaced by the subatomic scar of electron looting. You lose your wave coherence and disconnect from the galactic network. Inflammation as electromagnetic static, thermal noise. The inevitable response to chronic cortisol and oxidative looting is the activation of alarm sirens, systemic inflammation. Medicine describes inflammation as heat, pain, and swelling. It is the immune system firing chemical weapons blindly into your plasma. From quantum telecommunications, inflammation is something more insidious. It is electromagnetic static. In circuit theory, any conducting resistance above absolute zero generates random voltage fluctuations known as Johnson-Nyquist noise or thermal noise. Mathematically, noise voltage, Vn$, is expressed as V in order to muscularity, where Kb$ is Boltzmann's constant, $$ is resistance, and T$ is temperature. Observe this equation. Noise, Vn, increases as temperature, T$, and resistance, Ra, increase. Chronic inflammation is literally an increase in cellular temperature and a massive increase in fascial and vascular resistance. When your tissues are inflamed, your biology is boiling at a quantum level. This noise creates a deafening wall. The delicate electromagnetic wave generated by your heart and the biophotons from your DNA are drowned out by the chaotic roar of inflammation. It is like trying to tune into a low-power classical radio station while standing next to a sparking industrial reactor. The spirit cannot read the message because the signal-to-noise ratio has collapsed. Acidosis and rouleau. Formation, liquid crystal collapse. Fear chemistry doesn't just heat and oxidize blood, it also makes it bitter. Chronic stress and dense emotions, unprocessed anger, guilt, alter respiratory rates and metabolic efficiency, leading to a buildup of hydrogen ions, Hamiltors, in the plasma. Blood leaves its alkaline range, 7.35, 7.45, and plunges toward acidosis. In Chapter 2, we explored how plasma, composed of fourth-phase water, H3ECO, $2, acts as a liquid crystal storing holographic memory. This crystalline state is fragile. It requires an alkaline pH to sustain the electronegative charge that keeps the hexagonal network intact. When plasma becomes acidic, the crystalline matrix melts. The blood stops being a fluid superconductor and becomes a chaotic soup. The most destructive consequence occurs in the iron carriers, red blood cells. In a state of perfect Feng dimension, alkaline health, each red cell has a potent negative charge on its surface, known as the zeta potential. Like charges repel, keeping cells separate. But acidity destroys the zeta potential. Red cells lose their negative charge, and attraction overcomes repulsion. They stick together, stacking like towers of coins, in a phenomenon called rouleau formation. This is a cryptographic catastrophe. Available magnetic surface area is reduced by 80%. These heavy towers cannot reach microcapillaries. The blood stagnates. Oxygen does not arrive, creating more acidity and a vicious cycle of entropic death. When blood is in rouleau, you are biologically depressed. You feel life is a titanic effort, as if dragging your body through a swamp of tar, because at a microscopic level, that is exactly what your heart is trying to pump. Vasoconstriction and loss of Fing dimension, turbulence. Fear doesn't just poison blood chemistry, it alters the topology of the channel. Smooth muscle lining your arteries responds to cortisol and adrenaline by contracting in a defensive spasm. This is vasoconstriction. Chronic stress reduces the diameter of your internal pipes. Fluid dynamics shows how fear destroys mathematical order. For quantum information to transmit without corruption, blood flow must be laminar. In laminar flow, fluid particles move in orderly parallel layers that do not cross. It is liquid silence. It is the Fang dimension in motion. But when the vessel shrinks and pressure rises, flow enters the chaos of turbulence. We predict this collapse using the Reynolds number, R. Preordain Nefrak. When velocity spikes due to cardiac stress, flow becomes turbulent, Re $4,000. In turbulence, blood forms erratic vortices and cross-currents that crash against arterial walls. Informationally, turbulence destroys the electromagnetic wave. The magnetic tape of iron twists, biophotons scatter, and the signal fragments. The heart, the great decryptor, tries to read the blood entering the vena cava, but finds only a whirlwind of kinetic chaos. A turbulent system cannot hold organized memory. Fear has effectively formatted the biological hard drive. Vibrational detox, the quantum firewall. How do we clean the infection? How do we remove this ancestral and environmental malware? The 3D response is to seek a pill or a detox diet. While alkaline foods are vital for hardware repair, nutrition alone cannot stop the source program. If you continue secreting fear chemistry, your diet is like fighting a forest fire with a squirt gun. The true antivirus is not chemical, it is frequential. Vibrational detoxification requires your sovereign observing consciousness. To restore the code, you must raise a firewall at the exact threshold where the external event translates into internal chemistry. The secret equation is the separation between stimulus and response. When you receive alarming news or an ego attack, the HPA axis is milliseconds away from firing cortisol. In that micro-point of bio-spacetime, the observer must intervene. If you identify with the fear and tell yourself the story of disaster, you open the back door. But if you anchor in zero latency, zero ping, the HPA axis aborts. By neutralizing the mental story, you deny the chemical signature. Cortisol is not secreted. Blood remains alkaline and laminar. You have defeated entropy through pure mastery of attention. To purge existing infections and shield your bloodstream, you must implement these rewrite protocols. 1. Electromagnetic drainage, active grounding. Free radicals are hungry for electrons. You must discharge them into the most massive source, the Earth. Spend 20 minutes with bare skin on wet earth or grass. The Earth's surface has an inexhaustible negative charge. Millions of electrons will flood your blood, neutralizing radicals and turning off thermal inflammation. 2. Geometric vasodilation, the peace command. To counter vasoconstriction and return blood to a laminar state, send a relaxation command to your arterial tree. Lie flat, ensuring your Z-axis is straight. Visualize your circulatory system as branches of golden light. As you exhale, use visualization to repeat expansion. Nitric oxide will release, opening the floodgates. 3. Alchemy of the neutral observer. Fear chemistry is addictive. Cells develop more receptors for cortisol if you are chronically stressed. To break this addiction, you must starve the virus. Set mental alarms. When you feel anxiety, freeze your 3D movement. Observe your body. Apply the thermodynamics of detachment. Say, I recognize this code, but I give it no voltage. Pure blood is tabula rasa. Cleaning the code infection is a sacred battle. As you reduce cortisol, neutralize oxidative stress through grounding, and quench the fire of inflammation, blood plasma recovers its hexagonal crystal structure. Red blood cells separate from suffocating rouleau formations and regain their individual magnetic buoyancy. The blood becomes light, rich in negative charge, and highly alkaline. Thermal noise vanishes. In the silence of perfect laminar flow, the iron of your hemoglobin becomes a tabula rasa again, a blank disk ready for new instructions. The heart is prepared. The magnetic tape has been wiped of survival malware. Your biology is now a crystalline chalice, waiting to be filled with the highest frequency of conscious manifestation. But to write upon this purified canvas, to truly engrave the light of the spirit into the water of the body, we must master the most powerful element. We must master the force that carries stellar photons to the bone. It is time to learn to breathe the universe. The journey continues toward the realm of oxygen, the decoding breath, and the quantum physics of prana. Chapter 6. Oxygen and Prana, the decoding breath. Breathing is the only system in the human body that is completely autonomous and at the same time completely controllable at will. You can spend weeks without eating, days without drinking water, but only a few minutes without breathing. However, despite this biological urgency, most of humanity breathes just enough not to die. We ignore the vast ocean of potential hidden in every inhalation and exhalation. In this chapter, we will explore the sacred duality of breathing. We will travel from the dense biology of oxygen to the subtle fluidity of prana. We will discover how their convergence acts as a master key capable of decoding deep-seated traumas. 1. The double nature of breathing. To understand the power of the decoding breath, we must unravel its two threads. When you inhale, you're not just introducing a mixture of gases, you are participating in a cosmic exchange. You are absorbing the planet's atmosphere and the life energy of the universe. Oxygen is the fuel of matter at a strictly physical level. Inhalation has a main goal, gas exchange. We inhale oxygen, O2, and exhale carbon dioxide, CO2. This process is the engine of biological life. When oxygen enters the lungs, it crosses the thin membrane of the alveoli and binds to hemoglobin. From there, it is pumped by the heart to every corner of the body, reaching the cells. Inside the cells, oxygen enters the mitochondria, the power plants of our biology, participating in cellular respiration. Through this, the body produces ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency allowing everything from your heartbeat to the neural synapses that let you read these words right now. However, oxygen is also a highly reactive molecule. Chronic stress, poor diet, and shallow breathing, breathing only with the upper chest, reduce cellular oxygenation, creating an acidic environment. When cells operate in hypoxia, low oxygen, they enter survival mode. In this state, physical and emotional healing is impossible. Prana is the architect of the invisible. If oxygen nourishes the cell, prana nourishes the soul and the energy body. In the Hindu yogic tradition, prana is defined as the primordial life force, the cosmic breath. The Chinese call it chi or chi, the Japanese ki, and the ancient Greeks pneuma. Prana is not oxygen, it is intelligence. It is the invisible intelligence that organizes matter. It travels through the breath, but is distributed via an intricate system of energy channels known as nadis, analogous to acupuncture meridians. Oxygen keeps your vehicle of flesh alive, but prana is the driver that determines the direction, speed, and purpose of the trip. When we breathe unconsciously or shallowly, we absorb just enough oxygen to survive, but block the flow of prana. This restriction manifests in the physical body as lethargy, brain fog, illness, and a deep sense of spiritual disconnection. We become disconnected from the very source that organizes our biological reality. 2. The breath as a decoding tool. What does it mean to decode through breathing? We must look at how the body stores experiences. Modern science in epigenetics and psychoneuroimmunology shows that unexpressed emotions and chronic stress do not simply vanish. They are stored in the body. When we experience trauma, the sympathetic nervous system activates. If the energy of that event is not discharged by shaking, crying, or deep breathing, it remains trapped in the fascial tissue, muscles, and cellular memory. These emotional time capsules act as corrupt codes in our human operating system. They make us overreact to triggers and predispose us to autoimmune diseases. Here is where the decoding breath enters. Conscious breathing uses the synergy of oxygen and prana to penetrate these areas of density, acting as an antivirus scanner and an uninstallation tool. The physiological mechanism involves oxygen supersaturation. Through connected breathing, we temporarily raise oxygen levels. This alters the carbon dioxide balance, causing a transient alkalinity that deactivates the frontal lobe, the analytical brain, and activates the limbic system and amygdala, emotional centers. Deep diaphragmatic breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, the information highway of the parasympathetic system, rest and digest. By stimulating the vagus nerve, we send a direct signal to the primitive brain. You are safe. There is no longer danger. This safety signal is the fundamental requirement for the body to release trauma. At a subtle level, the massive entry of vital energy begins to collide against blocks in the nadis and chakras. Like a rising river after a storm that sweeps away stagnant logs, concentrated prana pushes, loosens, and finally dissolves emotional crystallizations. The breath becomes a solvent for the density of the past. 3. Emotion physiology and breathing patterns. Tell me how you breathe, and I will tell you how you feel. There is an unbreakable bi-directional feedback loop between breathing patterns and emotional states. Think of how you breathe when scared, a sudden gasp, followed by holding the breath, or short, fast chest breaths. Think of how you breathe when you are deeply sad, heavy sighs, long exhalations, and an inability to take a full breath, as if the chest were crushed. Now remember how you breathe when deeply relaxed, slow, rhythmic, expanding the abdomen. Trauma freezes us in dysfunctional patterns. Many spend their lives in email apnea or chronic imperceptible hyperventilation. Decoding occurs when we consciously reverse the process. If anxiety creates short breathing, forcing a slow, deep breath makes it neurologically impossible for the brain to maintain the anxiety. By consciously altering the rhythm, depth, and texture of the breath, we are hacking the autonomic nervous system. Psychoanalyst Wilhelm Reich introduced the concept of body armor or muscular armor. He argued we block vital energy by chronically tensing muscles to avoid feeling painful emotions. The decoding breath acts as a key. When we guide prana and oxygen to the tense diaphragm or jaw, we initiate a somatic conversation. 4. Decoding breathing techniques. To unify oxygen and prana in cellular alchemy, you must experience it in the laboratory of your own body. Below are 3 fundamental methodologies, ordered from nervous system regulation to deep trauma release. The first is heart coherence breathing, the balancer. This technique is the starting point. Before decoding deep traumas, the body needs to learn what safety feels like. Coherence aligns the heart rhythm with breathing, creating maximum physiological efficiency. The purpose is to synchronize sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, reducing cortisol. The technique involves equalizing inhalation and exhalation. The gold standard is inhaling for 5.5 seconds and exhaling for 5.5 seconds. Here, oxygen saturates the blood without stress, while prana flows in a balanced circuit, harmonizing the brain hemispheres. The second is nadi shodhana, alternate nostril breathing, the subtle unblocker. This comes from the pranayama tradition. This technique doesn't aim to hyperoxygenate, but to direct prana surgically to clean nadis. Its purpose is to clean the ida, feminine, calming, and pingala, masculine, active channels. Using the thumb and ring finger, you alternately block nostrils. It decodes rigid thought patterns and creates neuroplasticity. The third is connected circular breathing, the emotional operating room. This is the decoding technique par excellence, used in holotropic breathwork or rebirthing. It is intense and transformative. Its purpose is to shut down the prefrontal cortex, access the deep subconscious, and release embedded cellular memory. The technique involves full, deep inhalations into the belly and chest, followed by relaxed exhalations with no pause between them. The body floods with oxygen, and the blood temporarily alkalizes. Pranically, it is like opening a dam. The excess energy breaks emotional repressions, leading to visions or forgotten memories. Tetany and somatic catharsis. When practitioners delve into connected breathing, they often experience a physical phenomenon called tetany. It manifests as cramps, stiffness, or involuntary tension, typically in the hands, forming lobster claws, around the mouth or in the limbs. From a medical view, it results from the pH change, respiratory alkalosis. This alters how calcium binds to proteins, causing contractions. But from the perspective of the decoding breath, tetany is a spectacular somatic manifestation of control letting go of its anchors. The muscles that tense often correspond to areas where we hold stagnant prana. Stiff mouths represent unspoken, silenced words. When an individual breathes through tetany without panic, surrendering to the sensation instead of fighting it, catharsis occurs. The neurological knot undoes itself. Oxygen oxidizes the old physical toxin. Prana sweeps away the emotional toxin. After the peak, the person enters a state of profound silence and reconnection. 6. Internal alchemy, unifying tangible and intangible. Decoding breathwork is at its core an act of alchemy. Medieval alchemy sought to transmute lead into gold. Human internal alchemy seeks to transmute the lead of unconscious trauma into the gold of expanded consciousness. For this to succeed, we must approach the breath with reverence. It is not just a mechanical exercise. If you treat circular breathing as just a trick to hyperventilate, you will get dizziness. If you treat it as the sacred bridge between matter and spirit, you will get healing. The integration process is vital. Decoding requires time to recalibrate. The nervous system is rewriting itself and needs rest and hydration. Be a silent witness. The hours following a session often bring insights. The veil of the subconscious is thinner. Grounding is also essential. Walking barefoot on the earth and interacting with nature helps prana stabilize in the lower chakras, anchoring the changes into your three-dimensional reality. 7. The breath of a new humanity. The disconnection between mind and body has led to an epidemic of anxiety and chronic illness. We have sought solutions outside ourselves, in pills, digital distractions, and external validation. While modern medicine has its place, we have forgotten the endogenous pharmacy and the potent spiritual technology we possess. Oxygen and prana, dancing in the rhythmic choreography of the breath, offer us a way back home. We do not need intermediaries to access this power. You are born with this technology integrated into your biological hardware. By learning to breathe consciously, we are assuming radical responsibility for our own healing. We are saying, I refuse to be a warehouse for traumas of my past. I choose to recycle my pain into wisdom. I choose to breathe life into the dead spaces of my being. The decoding breath is an invitation to wake up. Every inhalation is a chance to receive life. Every exhalation, a chance to let go of death. Chapter 7. Sacred Geometry of the Circulatory System. In the previous chapter, we explored how oxygen and prana intertwine through the decoding breath to awaken cellular memory. But once the breath crosses the alveolar barrier, it needs a vehicle, a distribution network to carry that vital spark to the darkest and densest corners of the human body. That network is the circulatory system. Its engine is the heart. However, reducing the heart to a simple mechanical pump and blood vessels to mere pipes is one of the greatest simplifications of modern biology. The circulatory system is not just biological plumbing. It is the materialization of sacred geometry within us. It is the intelligent design of the universe. This design is expressed through fractals, golden ratios, and toroidal fields designed to transport not only nutrients, but pure consciousness in the form of liquid light. For centuries, science viewed the heart as a pressure pump that forcibly pushes blood through miles of vessels. Physically, this theory presents significant anomalies. An organ of barely 300 grams does not possess enough mechanical force to push a viscous fluid through a network of capillaries that, if unrolled, would circle the earth more than twice. So, how does blood move? The heart is, in reality, a geometric oscillator and a vortex generator. Its field is not random, it is a torus. 1. The heart, the toroidal oscillator. The electromagnetic field of the heart adopts the structure of a torus, a shape similar to a donut or an apple. The torus is the primary shape the universe uses to sustain energy in a dynamic and self-sustaining environment. We see it in the Earth's magnetic field. in the structure of galaxies, and even at a subatomic scale. Energy flows through the center of the heart's torus, expands outward, descends, and re-enters through the base in a continuous feedback loop. This electromagnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain and can be measured several meters away from the human body. This is our primary energetic signature. When we experience high-frequency emotions such as gratitude, compassion, or unconditional love, this toroidal field becomes highly coherent. Its geometry stabilizes, sending signals of order and harmony to every cell. Conversely, chronic anger or fear distorts this geometry, creating a chaotic field that triggers stress hormones. Anatomically, the heart is not a box-shaped muscle. Thanks to the studies of Dr. Francisco Torrent Guasp, we now know that the heart is actually a single flat muscular band that folds onto itself in the shape of a double helix or spiral. When the heart beats, it doesn't just squeeze, it twists like a wet towel. This spiral movement creates a vortex. This motion does not push blood with brute force, but rather implodes it, giving it a rotating impulse that allows it to travel through the body without friction, riding on its own geometric inertia. It is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics that defies traditional Newtonian mechanics. 2. The fractal tree, the architecture of blood vessels. Once blood leaves the heart through the aorta, it enters a labyrinth of arteries and capillaries. If we look at a resin mold of the human circulatory system, we will not see a mechanical grid, but the living image of the branches of an ancient oak or the root system of a forest. This architecture obeys fractal geometry. A fractal is a geometric pattern that repeats itself at different scales. No matter how much you zoom in or out, the basic structure remains the same. In pure mathematics, the fractal dimension d-dou-dollars of a self-similar structure can be described by the relationship between the number of internal copies, nen-dalu, and the scaling factor, is-dollars. The universe uses fractals to solve a monumental engineering problem: how to pack the largest possible surface area into a limited and finite volume. In our case, the body needs blood to touch practically every cell to deliver oxygen and remove toxins, but it must do so within the closed space of our physical anatomy. The fractal branching of blood vessels allows the exchange surface of the capillaries to be the size of a tennis field, fitting perfectly under our skin. Here is where biology and somatic psychology meet. Vascular fractals are dynamic, not static. They respond instantly to the state of our nervous system and emotions. When we experience trauma or live in a constant state of alert, the sympathetic nervous system orders peripheral vasoconstriction. The tiny fractal capillaries in our extremities and skin contract, withdrawing blood toward vital organs. If this state becomes chronic, the fractal geometry withers, creating zones of cold. Decoding this trauma involves returning a sense of safety to the body so that the smooth muscle of the blood vessels can relax, allowing the fractal tree to flourish again in its maximum geometric expansion. This restoration of flow is the physical equivalent of reclaiming territory that was lost to fear and contraction. Blood, liquid crystal, and magnetic antenna. If the circulatory system is the network and the heart is the generator, blood is the information itself. We usually think of blood as a thick red liquid, but at a molecular level, it is a complex liquid crystal system. Blood plasma is 90% water. As quantum physics teaches us, water is not a mere solvent. It is a magnetic tape capable of storing structural information. Within a healthy body, the water in the blood organizes into highly ordered hexagonal structures known as exclusion zone water, EZ'd water. This geometry gives blood superconductive properties, allowing signals to travel at astonishing speeds. Low-frequency emotions, electromagnetic pollution, and toxins break this hexagonal geometry, turning blood water into a disordered liquid that loses its optimal conductivity. Red blood cells carry oxygen using a protein called hemoglobin. At the exact center of the hemoglobin molecule is an iron atom. Iron is a ferromagnetic material. It resonates with magnetic fields. When blood spirals through the heart's vortex, iron atoms become magnetized and imprinted with the electromagnetic signature of your current emotional state. But there is something even deeper. The memory of the ancestors travels in the blood. From the perspective of epigenetics and the biofield, this claim makes literal sense. Epigenetic markers inherited from our ancestors encode how our cells read DNA, affecting how we metabolize and react to stress. The iron in our blood acts as an antenna tuning into the morphic field of our lineage. 4. The pulse of the golden ratio. Sacred geometry also manifests in time through rhythm. A healthy heart's beat is not a perfectly regular metronome. It possesses a finely tuned heart rate variability, HRV. Even more amazing is that the phases of contraction, systole, and relaxation, diastole, align with the golden ratio or the number phi. Mathematically, phi is defined as chap phi, nefrak 1 plus SQRT approx 1.618 This ratio governs the spiral of nautilus shells, the distribution of seeds in a sunflower, and the proportions of the human body. In a state of maximum coherence, deep peace, love, the relationship between waves in an EKG tends toward 1,618 dollars. Your heart literally beats to the rhythm of the harmonic proportion of the universe. When we live in cognitive dissonance, when we ignore our intuition or harbor deep resentments, this beat loses its golden proportion. It becomes a mechanical thud, devoid of the musical grace required to regenerate cellular tissue. 5. Somatic practices for harmonic blood geometry. Knowing the sacred geometry of our circulatory system is revelatory, but embodying it is transformative. We cannot force our blood vessels to dilate through mental effort. We must persuade them through the language of the body. Here are 3 practices to restore the geometric order of your vital flow. Day the toroid breath, electromagnetic visualization. Sit comfortably with a straight spine. Bring attention to your chest. Imagine a point of bright light in your heart. As you inhale, visualize this light ascending through your body and exiting through the crown. As you exhale, visualize this energy entering the base of your spine and returning to your heart. B. Sound vibration and internal cymatics. Cymatics is the study of how sound organizes matter. Use toning or prolonged vocalization. Take a deep breath and, as you exhale, emit a sustained O or U sound. Let the sound resonate deeply in your chest. The vibration acts as a cellular massage, breaking stress crystallizations and releasing nitric oxide. C. Spiral fascial movement. Since the heart pumps in a spiral, the body responds to helical movements. Standing with feet shoulder-width apart, rotate your central axis, letting your arms hang loose and gently tap your body. Incorporate stretching movements where you slowly twist your joints, as if wringing a towel to release the fascia. 6. Blood as witness and medicine. Our blood is the fluid record of our history. Every heartbeat pushes this liquid crystal library through the vast fractal architecture of our body, carrying information about who we are, what we have suffered, and what we love. Understanding the circulatory system is about embracing the body as a divine instrument. Your heart does not break from mechanical effort. It weakens from the loss of geometric coherence imposed by a world that demands stress. When you choose to heal somatic trauma, you are literally smoothing the kinks in your arteries. You are returning the golden ratio to your pulse. The circulatory system is your spiritual fiber optic network. Keep the design of the network pure, and the message of life will flow without obstruction. Beyond the physical, the blood acts as a bridge between the physical world and the subtle dimensions of the spirit, acting as a medium for the soul's light. 7. The alchemy of hemoglobin, transmuting lead to gold. The journey of the iron atom in our blood is a profound metaphor for the alchemical process. Iron, often associated with the density of Mars and the hardness of leaden existence, is transformed within the heart's vortex into a carrier of life-giving oxygen. This is the biological transmutation of density into light. When we are in a state of fear, the iron in our blood becomes heavy, reflecting a lack of spin and a collapse of the toroidal field. This heavy blood leads to the physical sensation of exhaustion and the spiritual feeling of being earthbound or trapped in the material plane. Alchemy is the art of spin. By increasing the coherence of our heart, we increase the spin or angular momentum of the atoms within our blood. This is not just a poetic concept. It is a shift in the magnetic permeability of the fluid. Highly coherent blood flows with less resistance, carrying a higher voltage of life force. This higher voltage allows the nervous system to process higher dimensional information. It is as if we are upgrading the biological hardware to handle a more complex and luminous software of consciousness. The blood becomes a superconductor for the Holy Spirit or the gnosis that seeks to enter the temple of the body. The endothelium, the intelligent boundary. The inner lining of our blood vessels, the endothelium, is one of the largest and most intelligent organs in the body. It is a single layer of cells that acts as a sophisticated sensor, detecting changes in pressure, chemistry, and even the vibration of the blood as it passes by. It is the interface of the network. When the blood flow is laminar and geometric, the endothelium produces healing compounds like nitric oxide. When the flow is turbulent due to stress, the endothelium becomes inflamed, signaling a breach in the system's integrity. Healing the circulatory system is about whispering to the endothelium that the war is over. When we practice the spiral movements mentioned earlier, we are physically massaging this intelligent boundary. We are clearing the static from the lines of communication. This allows the body's innate wisdom to flow once again into areas that have been dark for years due to trauma-induced constriction. The blood then acts as a gentle solvent, washing away the chemical residues of old grief and the calcified remains of ancient fears. Every capillary that reopens is a new branch on your tree of life, a new potential for feeling, for sensing, and for being fully present in the miracle of the now. 9. The pulse of the earth and the heart's resonance. Finally, we must recognize that our internal sacred geometry is not isolated. The human heart is designed to entrain with the Schumann resonance, the heartbeat of the earth. When our blood is structured and our pulse follows the golden ratio, we become a living resonator for the planet's wisdom. This connection is what allows for the phenomenon of flow states, where time seems to disappear and we act with effortless precision. In these moments, our circulatory system is perfectly synchronized with the larger fractals of the natural world. We are no longer a separate ego. We are a pulse in the cosmic body. This is the ultimate goal of blood cryptography, to return the human being to their rightful place as a conscious knot in the grand web of life. Your blood is not just yours, it is a drop of the ocean of existence, encoded with the same laws that move the stars. Honor the geometry, and the geometry will sustain you. Chapter 8. The structured water of your plasma. If the circulatory system is the fractal tree sustaining life, and the heart is the toroidal oscillator marking the universe's rhythm in our chest, blood plasma is the primordial ocean where true alchemy occurs. At first glance, plasma is a yellowish liquid representing about 55% of the total blood volume. Classic science has defined it in a reductionist way as a mere transport medium, an inert river composed of 90% water, whose only function is to carry red cells, white cells, platelets, hormones and nutrients through the body. However, this mechanistic view ignores one of the most revolutionary discoveries of modern biophysics. The water flowing through your veins, bathing your cells, and permeating your connective tissue is not the same substance that comes out of your kitchen tap. It is not a simple liquid solvent. It is a dynamic liquid crystal, a network of living information that converts your biology into conscious matter. In this chapter, we will explore the mystery of structured water, how plasma acts as a quantum battery, and why emotional dehydration is the invisible root of countless diseases. 1. The fourth state of water, the exclusion zone, ESE. Since elementary school, we are taught that water exists in 3 states: solid, ice, liquid, water, and gas, vapor. But nature, in its infinite elegance, keeps secrets at the thresholds of matter. Thanks to the pioneering research of scientists like Dr. Gerald Pollack, we now know that biological water exists in a 4th state. When water comes into contact with hydrophilic, water-loving surfaces, such as cellular proteins, blood vessel walls, and cell membranes, its molecular structure changes radically. Instead of the chaotic and disordered molecules of common liquid water, H2,2-diluosar, the molecules self-organize into layers of perfect hexagonal rings. This honeycomb structure expels any impurity or solute from its network, which is why Pollack named it exclusion zone water, EZ water. But the most amazing change is chemical and electrical. In this structured state, water ceases to be H2-dol and transforms into a new molecule, H3-2-da. This fourth state of water is denser, more viscous, and more alkaline than regular water. But most importantly, from the perspective of biophysics, is that EZ water has a negative charge. It functions literally as a battery. As this layer of negatively charged structured water forms, protons are pushed outward. This creates a voltage gradient. Your plasma does not just transport biochemical energy, ATP. The water of your plasma itself is latent electrical energy. You are a hydroelectric being. 2. Plasma as a quantum consciousness network. When we understand that plasma is an electrically charged hexagonal liquid crystal, our entire understanding of the human body changes. Crystals, in modern technology, are used in radios, computers, and watches for a specific reason. They are transducers. They can receive, store, amplify, and transmit electromagnetic info. Your blood plasma and cerebrospinal fluid, which is essentially ultra-filtered plasma, act in exactly the same way. They are the quantum hardware upon which the software of your consciousness runs. In quantum physics, coherence occurs when a group of subatomic particles acts in perfect synchrony, behaving as a single entity. The structured water in your plasma exhibits a high degree of quantum coherence. This means that a change in electromagnetic charge or vibration at one end of your body can be communicated instantly to the rest of the system, much faster than simple chemical diffusion or nerve impulses would allow. When we experience a visceral hunch, a deep intuition, or spontaneous healing, we are witnessing the quantum coherence of plasma water in action. Plasma receives the frequency of the environment and translates it into biological signals almost immediately. Your internal biology is in a constant dialogue with your environment's design. Just as in the macrocosm, the organization of living space alters the flow of qi. In the microcosm, the purity and structure of your plasma determine how that qi is absorbed and used by your cells. If your plasma is structured, vital information flows without resistance. If it is unstructured, the information becomes corrupted. 3. Light and the biological photoelectric effect. If structured water is a battery, how is it recharged? The answer takes us back to the quantum universe, through light. Exclusion zone water grows and absorbs energy directly from photons, specifically from infrared light, radiant heat, and the Earth's natural electromagnetic spectrum. When infrared light penetrates our skin and reaches the capillaries, photons hit the plasma water. Following the principle of the Planck-Einstein equation, where a photon's energy is directly proportional to its frequency, BWE, nefrak. The water absorbs this quantum energy. This absorption drastically expands the exclusion zone, increasing the negative charge of the plasma and providing cells with an excess of electrons, free energy, to heal, detoxify, and regenerate. The modern human suffers from profound light malnutrition. We spend most of our lives under artificial lights lacking the sun's spectrum. We are surrounded by non-native electromagnetic fields, Wi-Fi, mobile phones, that bombard our biological water with chaotic frequencies. This constant exposure to electromagnetic dissonance, added to emotional stress, melts the structured water of our plasma. Hexagonal rings break, H3O2 reverts to chaotic H2. The cellular battery loses its charge. Physically, this manifests as chronic fatigue, brain fog, systemic inflammation, and a depressed immune system. At a subtle and emotional level, the loss of structured water isolates us. The liquid crystal network that allows us to feel compassion and intuition fragments. 4. Trauma and fascial dehydration. To understand the magnitude of structured water in healing, we must look at the extracellular matrix and the fascial system. Fascia is an uninterrupted three-dimensional network of connective tissue. What lubricates and gives life to this network is the structured water that filters from the blood plasma. When we experience a trauma, whether physical or emotional, that the nervous system does not process, the body generates a contraction. This sustained contraction literally squeezes the water out of the affected tissues. Like a sponge that has dried out in the sun, the fascial tissue becomes rigid, sticky, and dense. This emotional dehydration prevents the flow of new blood, prana, and photons to that area. Trauma becomes encapsulated in a prison of dehydrated tissue lacking electromagnetic coherence. This is where the decoding breath interacts with the plasma. Rhythmic breathing mechanically pumps cerebrospinal fluid and blood plasma. As oxygen and prana flood the system, they act as an electromagnetic icebreaker. Conscious breathing reintroduces charge and movement into dry fascial tissues, inviting water molecules to restructure into their healing hexagonal form. By rehydrating the tissue, the trauma memory trapped in dense crystallization dissolves. 5. The blood, the spine, and cosmic reception. The structured water network is not just on the periphery. It extends from the blood plasma into the cerebrospinal fluid, bathing the brain and descending through the central canal of the spinal cord. This column of crystalline fluid is not an architectural accident. It functions as an immense resonant antenna. The spinal cord uses this highly conductive and structured fluid to tune into circadian rhythms, the Schumann resonance, Earth's electromagnetic heartbeat at 7,083 Hz, and subtle quantum field fluctuations. When spinal fluid and plasma maintain high H3O2 integrity, the human body operates as a pristine receiver. Mental intentions and elevated emotional states can be transmitted instantly from the brain to every corner of the anatomy, and subtle perceptions of the environment are captured with amazing clarity. Biology becomes a faithful mirror of consciousness. 6. Practices to restore quantum plasma. Knowing that plasma is a liquid crystal sensitive to light, magnetism, and emotion, healing requires a multidisciplinary approach. We cannot simply drink more water if that water lacks the electromagnetic capacity to structure itself within the body. Here are methodologies to rebuild your plasma's coherence. A. Photonic nutrition, light baths. Structured water feeds on light. Method: expose yourself to sunlight in the early morning and late afternoon. During these windows, the proportion of red and infrared light is maximal. This infrared light expands the exclusion zone, EZ, of your plasma instantly. B. Grounding, earthing. Your body needs free electrons to build the negative pole of H3O2. Method: walk barefoot on the earth, grass, or sand for at least 15 to 20 minutes a day. The Earth's surface possesses an infinite negative charge. By grounding, your body absorbs these electrons, providing the raw material the plasma needs. C. The geometry of hydration, living water. Drinking large amounts of reverse osmosis or distilled water can paradoxically dehydrate you at a cellular level, as this is dead water lacking structure. Method: add a pinch of unrefined sea salt to your water. Consume water-rich vegetables and cold-pressed green juices. This is literally drinking nature's prepackaged H3O2. D. Emotional coherence as a crystallization vector. Vibration organizes matter. Method: use the power of conscious intention and gratitude. Before drinking water, hold it and project an elevated emotion. Internally, cultivate states of appreciation. Water responds to the heart's field. A state of love sends the sacred geometry needed to organize the plasma into a pristine crystal. The river of memory and light. Decoding human biology requires abandoning the idea that we are meat and bone machines. We are, in our most literal and scientific essence, crystallized liquid light. Blood plasma, in its optimal state of structured water, is the medium through which the spirit interacts with matter. It is the quantum canvas where prana and oxygen paint the reality of your cellular health. When your plasma loses its structure due to trauma and emotional toxicity, the canvas tears and disease enters. But the beauty of this design is its plasticity. Your plasma is being renewed second by second. By choosing to bathe in natural light, connect your feet with the earth, nourish yourself with living water, and breathe with intention, you are rebuilding the intimate architecture of your consciousness. You are preparing your biology to act as a tuned receiver. The structured water of your plasma is the bridge to the universe. Chapter 9. Lineage Frequencies, the Resonance of Blood Types. In the previous chapters, we unraveled the mystery of plasma as a liquid crystal, a network of structured water that transports light and memory through our bodies. However, plasma is only the ocean. Now we must observe the vessels that sail those waters and the encoded information they carry in their sails. We are talking about red blood cells, and more specifically, the electromagnetic signature that defines them, your blood type. Modern biology classifies blood based on the presence or absence of certain antigens on the surface of red blood cells, the ABO system and the Rh factor. This is usually seen as a simple compatibility marker. But from the perspective of quantum physics and subtle anatomy, your blood type is much more than a biological marker. It is an antenna tuned to a specific frequency. It is the biological manifestation of your ancestral heritage, a vibrational barcode that determines how you interact with the energy of the earth and its cycles. Blood is not an inert liquid. It is conscious matter, pulsing with the memory of thousands of generations. It is the vibrational record of your lineage. Un antigens as quantum antennas. To understand the resonance of blood types, we must change our perception of what an antigen is. Biologically, antigens are complex molecular structures protruding from the membrane of the red blood cell like tiny transmission towers. At a subatomic level, these molecules are composed of vibrating atoms. Where there is vibration, there is emission and reception of frequencies. In physics, the magnetic resonance of a particle in a magnetic field, like Earth's, can be described by the Lama precession frequency. Tali omega zero. Ningama $0, where no omega $0 is the angular resonance frequency and to gammas is the gyromagnetic ratio. If we apply this to macrobiology, we understand that the physical structure of antigens in your blood alters your personal gyromagnetic ratio. It modifies how the iron atoms in your hemoglobin resonate with the planet's magnetic field and with the frequencies emitted by the food you eat and the emotions of those around you. Each blood type, OAB-AB, represents a specific evolutionary adaptation of humanity to drastic environmental and dietary changes. By inheriting a blood type, you inherit the resonance field of that evolutionary era, along with its immunological strengths and its specific energetic vulnerabilities. 2. The ABO system, the four primordial frequencies. Just as the universe is organized through fundamental forces, humanity has distilled its survival into four primary vibrational signatures. Knowing your blood type is understanding the original architectural plan upon which your physical avatar was built. It is the map of your biological hardware and its ancestral software. Type O, the frequency of origin, the hunter-gatherer. Type O, from the German ohne, meaning without A or B antigens, is the basal frequency of humanity, the oldest and most deeply rooted. It is the blood of the first humans, hunters whose survival depended on physical strength, visceral intuition, and a raw connection with the cycles of nature. The resonance, type O, vibrates in synchrony with the first root chakra. It is a dense magnetic energy deeply connected to the Schumann resonance. Conscious matter. At a cellular level, type O possesses a fierce immune system. However, this same aggressiveness makes them prone to inflammation if they do not discharge stress. The ancestral archetype. They are the anchors of the world. They retain the memory of physical trauma, but have an immense capacity to metabolize it through intense movement and action. In energetic terms, a type O body needs expansive space. Physical stagnation is their greatest poison. They thrive on the challenge of the terrain. Type A, the frequency of structure, the cultivator. About 20,000 years ago, humanity transitioned from nomadic hunting to agriculture. This radical change forced a mutation in the code of conscious matter. The A antigen was born. Type A is the blood of the first settled communities and civilizations, adapted to cooperation and social order. The resonance. It vibrates in harmony with the heart and solar plexus chakras. It is the frequency of empathy and the domestication of the environment. Conscious matter. Their immune system is more tolerant, adapted to higher population densities. However, this adaptation makes them neurologically more sensitive. The ancestral archetype. They are social architects. They absorb the emotions of the community. For them, environmental harmony is vital. Spatial chaos or toxic relationships literally collapse their electromagnetic field. Their medicine is internal peace and the structured beauty of their immediate surroundings. Type B, the frequency of adaptation, the nomad. The B antigen emerged 10,000 to 15,000 years ago in the Himalayas, an environment of extreme conditions. To survive forced migration, human biology created a frequency that was neither rigidly rooted, like O, nor completely settled, like A. It is a frequency of modulation and balance. The resonance. Type B is the quantum bridge linked to the sacral chakra, flow, creativity. Conscious matter. They have a sophisticated immune system to fight viral mutations. They are highly flexible in diet. However, their vulnerability lies in mental overstimulation and loss of purpose if they become desynchronized. The ancestral archetype, the world walker. The memory they carry is that of flexibility. Their medicine is the balance between the left and right brain. They need both logic and visual intuition to maintain a fluid blood geometry. They are the synthesis of movement and stability across changing landscapes. Type AB, the frequency of synthesis, the enigma. Type AB is an evolutionary rarity, appearing only 1,000 to 1,200 years ago from the mixing of Type A and Type B vibrations. It is the only blood that did not arise from environmental mutation, but from the biological integration of two pre-existing lineages. It is the modern alchemist. The resonance. It represents the upper chakras, third eye and crown. It is the frequency of complexity and the integration of polarities. Conscious matter. The AB red cell is coated in both antigens, giving it a chameleon-like immunity. Yet this tolerance can allow subtle threats to pass undetected under their radar. The ancestral archetype. They contain the contradictions of modern civilization. They are energetically vast, but if they do not learn to filter outside frequencies, they can feel overwhelmed by the empathic burden of holding all bloodlines within themselves. They are the peacemakers of the biological realm. 3. The RH factor and magnetic polarity. Beyond the ABO system, there is another layer, the rhesus RH factor. It refers to a specific protein, the D antigen, on the surface of red blood cells. If you have it, you are Rh positive, platoid. If you lack it, you are Rh negative, TC. About 85% of the world is Rh positive, sharing this primate evolutionary link. The remaining 15%, the Rh negatives, lack this specific evolutionary link. While esoteric myths suggest extraterrestrial origins, the reality of conscious matter is that Rh negative blood still uses iron. The difference is not exotic metals, but a genetic deletion. A protein is missing, changing the cell's energetic behavior. The electromagnetic isolation effect. In wave physics, a bare antenna picks up a different frequency range than a coated one. Rh-positive people have the D antigen acting as a grounding connector. They are magnetically anchored to the dense material frequencies of the Earth, facilitating full incarnation. Rh-negative people lack this anchoring protein. Without this filter, their red blood cells are hypersensitive to subtle electromagnetic frequencies, solar storms, and human energy fields. This is why many Rh negatives feel out of place in modern densities. Their blood acts as a wideband parabolic receiver for cosmic data. 4. Decoding the family tree. Our blood is the hard drive of family lineage. Through epigenetics, we know that trauma and famine experienced by ancestors leave chemical tags on our DNA. But the blood type determines how we decode that ancestral trauma. It is the specific lens through which we view and process the pain of the past. If you are type O, you store traumas of physical survival and territorial violence. To release this, you must engage deep musculature through physical effort, clearing fight-or-flight hormones. If you are type A, you carry traumas of submission and silenced truth. You heal through the voice and deep emotional security. If you are type B, your lineage carries the memory of exile and displacement. You find healing through creative self-expression and an internal sense of home. If you are type AB, you house the traumas of duality and spiritual division. Healing occurs by reconciling opposites and breaking generation-spanning conflicts. Fact, quantum feng shui of the inner space. Understanding our blood frequency leads to organizing our internal energy. This is internal feng shui. When we eat food that is in total dissonance with our blood frequency, like modern wheat for an ancient type O, agglutination occurs. Lectins in food act like glue, making blood cells clump together. Agglutination is, essentially, an energetic traffic jam. It destroys the flow of qi in your meridians. Harmonious internal feng shui means consuming vibrational information, food, thoughts, that your blood type can metabolize, allowing red cells to maintain their negative charge and glide without friction. 6. Practices to tune your lineage frequency. Your blood is constantly listening, tuning the dial of your environment. Here are approaches to optimize and clear the resonance of your blood lineage. A. Eating as vibrational dialogue. This is about electromagnetic coherence. Type O. Honor your antiquity with dense proteins and earth roots. Type A. Your geometry requires the subtlety of fresh plant frequencies. Type B. You need adaptogens and balance. Type AB. Your diet must be dictated by lightness and high vibration plants. B. Lymphatic and blood wash meditation. This is a biophysical technique to restructure your fluid's magnetic field. Sit in stillness. With each inhale, visualize infrared light entering your center. With each exhale, visualize this light clearing the generational static from your red cells, returning them to harmonic rotation. C. Magnetic field management, especially for Rh negatives. Protecting the biofield is a necessity. Avoid overexposure to crowds and dense Wi-Fi. Incorporate daily grounding. Walk on wet earth. Use Epsom salt baths. Magnesium restructures your auric shield. And visualize a toroidal container around your body. 7. Conclusion. The barcode of creation. Society tries to convince you that we are all biologically standardized, but the universe is a masterpiece of unique fractals and frequencies. Your blood type is the intimate instruction manual the universe wrote for the avatar you inhabit. It is the vibrational echo of a prehistoric hunter, a cultivator, or a nomad. When you stop fighting your internal design and start eating, moving, and processing emotions as the antenna of your blood demands, chronic fatigue vanishes, intuition spikes, and the body regains its divine right to self-healing. You are the history of the earth, encoded in iron, structured water, and pulsing light. Chapter 10. Illuminated blood, the state of absolute fluidity. We have traveled from the invisible mechanics of the decoding breath, crossing through the sacred geometry of the oscillating heart, submerging into the liquid crystal of structured plasma to the ancestral resonance encoded in our blood types. This journey has prepared us to understand the final goal: illuminated blood. Illuminated blood is not a poetic metaphor. It is a measurable physiological and electromagnetic state. It is the climax where biological resistance drops to zero and the body experiences the state of absolute fluidity. At this point, your biology ceases to be a dense survival mechanism to become conscious matter. It becomes a pristine superconductor that transports not only oxygen and nutrients, but literal light and pure cosmic intelligence. In this chapter, we will explore the physics of light within your veins, the awakening of the potential sleeping in your DNA, and how to apply the universal laws of spatial harmony to your blood. 1. Biophotons, the literal light in your veins. To understand illuminated blood, we must dismantle the idea that our interior is dark. Thanks to the work of German biophysicist Fritz Albert Popp in the 1970s, science confirmed that living cells emit light particles. These are known as biophotons. Human DNA is not just a genetic database, it is a biological laser. It functions as a master cavity resonator that constantly absorbs, stores, and emits light. Communication between cells occurs through instantaneous flashes of biological light. In physics, the relationship between light and energy is governed by the fundamental wave equation, CRYPTOGRAPHY, where $C is the speed of light. Blood trapped in fear or trauma emits chaotic out-of-phase light. Its biophotons lack coherence. It is like an orchestra where every instrument plays a different score. There is sound, but no music. Conversely, when the nervous system regulates, biophoton emission becomes highly coherent. White blood cells become lasers. The blood illuminates. In this state, information travels at the speed of light, activating instant healing cascades and regenerating tissue at a miraculous rate. This is the biological foundation of spontaneous remission and the physical state of high-level spiritual masters, where the body appears to glow from within. 2. Awakening from spiritual latency. Most of humanity lives in spiritual latency. Latency is the delay between a cause and its effect. Spiritually, it is the gap between the spark of universal consciousness and your physical capacity to embody it. When blood is saturated with stress hormones, the light of your biophotons cannot travel. It hits walls of density. Your true potential remains dormant in your DNA, waiting for the right electromagnetic signal. As we saw, the iron in your blood is an antenna. In latency, it picks up dense frequencies, collective stress, and ancestral trauma. But when you oxygenate the system through the decoding breath, a sacred friction occurs. Excess oxygen interacts with prana and ignites the iron at a subatomic level. The antenna recalibrates to finer frequencies. At this moment, latency breaks. The sleeping potential becomes kinetic. You experience downloads of information arising from nothing. It is your illuminated blood accessing the quantum field. 3. The feng dimension of the bloodstream. We associate harmonizing space with the outside world, feng shui. But what if we apply this science to our interior? Blood flows through a network that is a physical and energetic dimension. To reach absolute fluidity, we must apply internal feng shui to our vascular ecosystem. Where there is disorder, energy rots. The ancient Chinese categorization of the 5 elements must be in perfect architectural proportion within you for illuminated blood to exist. Water represents flow and structured plasma. Fire is the heart's toroidal oscillator and metabolism. Metal is the iron and minerals representing conductivity. Earth is the red blood cells and your magnetic connection to the planet. Wood is the fractal vascular tree representing growth. Applying this spatial ordering means clearing somatic clutter through fasting, autophagy, helical movement, fascial dusting, and conscious nutrition, photonic light. When the internal architecture is clear, qi rides the red blood cells without resistance. This is the inner palace where the spirit resides comfortably. Without this order, the biological temple becomes a ruin, and the consciousness cannot fully occupy the vessel, leading to fragmentation and disease. Or the state of absolute fluidity, zero friction. What does it feel like when the blood illuminates? You enter a state of flow elevated to a cellular paradigm. In classical physics, friction is the resistance an object finds moving over another, losing energy. In human biology, friction is stress, the resistance of your ego to the present moment. It is chronic tension. When you reach illuminated blood, you experience biological superconductivity. Superconductivity is a quantum phenomenon where a material loses all electrical resistance. Energy flows perpetually without dissipating. When your plasma reaches this level of coherence, you experience sovereign immunity. The body stops overreacting to stimuli. Allergies and autoimmune responses vanish because biophotonic cells communicate with crystalline clarity. Time perception is altered. The increase of photonic light takes you out of linear psychological time. You are anchored in a perpetual and expansive now. You develop somatic intuition. The toroidal heart takes command. You no longer depend on the analytical brain for vital decisions. Your body knows instantly if an environment is compatible. The character armor described by Wilhelm Reich dissolves. Muscles become malleable, soft but strong. The body feels light. 5. The alchemical marriage, matter and consciousness. Reaching this point is witnessing the ultimate alchemical marriage. Traditional science claims you are a biochemical accident. Orthodox religions claim you are a pure soul in a dirty flesh prison. Illuminated blood proves both are incomplete. Your body is not the wrapper of your spirit, it is its densification. Your blood is no different from starlight. It is simply light vibrating at a slower wavelength to experience the third dimension. By structuring the plasma and breathing light inward, you are spiritualizing your matter. You are converting physical density into conscious, malleable, and intelligent matter. Reciprocally, you are materializing your spirit. You are extracting spiritual latency from the quantum field and anchoring it in your capillaries. This allows the divine to manifest grace through your hands and words. You become a living bridge between the void of potential and the world of form. 6. Practices to activate absolute fluidity. Illuminated blood is a biological birthright accessible through intention and physics. To integrate this, you must prioritize photonic nutrition. Consume light by eating foods close to their living state. Dark greens and sun-ripened fruits contain the highest biophoton density. Avoid dead processed foods. Apply spatial fasting. Intermittent fasting is a dimensional cleaning technique. When digestion stops, energy goes to autophagy. The immune system devours old cells and clears the bloodstream, restoring space for plasma to flow. Practice circulatory coherence meditation in complete darkness. Visualize your heart as a sun of incandescent light. With each beat, feel that liquid light being pumped through your aorta to your fingertips and feet. Feel the heat in your limbs. It is focused consciousness altering real blood flow. Maintain this irradiation for 20 minutes to recalibrate the system. 7. The physics of radiance beyond the visible. When the blood is truly illuminated, it begins to emit a field that can be felt by others. This is the aura of radiance. In the state of zero friction, the body stops leaking energy as heat and begins to emit it as a coherent information field. This field acts as a natural shield against external dissonance. Highly coherent blood also changes its viscosity. It moves with a superfluid quality, meaning it can pass through the smallest capillaries with virtually no pressure gradient. This ensures that every single cell, even those in old scar tissue or forgotten parts of the body, receives the frequency of life. This is the biological secret of longevity. When every cell is bathed in coherent biophotonic light, the entropy clock slows down. The aging process, which is essentially the accumulation of cellular noise and errors, is countered by the constant corrective signal of the illuminated bloodstream. 8. The superconductor of the soul. The goal of this transmutation is to prepare the vessel for the descent of the spirit. In many traditions, this is called the light body. From a biophysical perspective, it is the transition of the human body from a carbon-based resistance machine to a crystalline-based light resonator. In the state of absolute fluidity, the blood acts as the Holy Grail, the chalice that holds the wine of spirit. The iron atoms, now perfectly aligned and spinning in harmony, create a magnetic resonance that matches the higher octaves of the cosmic field. You become a biological radio tuned to the station of truth. This state is the prerequisite for the awakening of the higher centers of the brain. The pineal and pituitary glands require a specific blood chemistry, one that is alkaline, high in H-tar-3-O-2-2, and rich in coherent biophotons to produce the endogenous DMT and other neurochemicals associated with transcendence. 9. The collective pulse, synchronizing the Red River. Illuminated blood also has a collective dimension. When individuals in this state come together, their toroidal fields entrain. This creates a supercoherence that can affect the environment and even the weather or social dynamics of a location. One illuminated heart can stabilize the chaos of 1,000. We are currently in a global transition where the collective blood of humanity is being purged of ancient traumas. Each person who undertakes the work of purifying their own internal river contributes to the cleaning of the collective ocean. Your healing is never just for you. It is a gift to the species. As your blood reaches the zero-friction state, you become a node of order in a world of entropy. You move through life with a strange luck or synchronicity, but it is not luck. It is simply that you are no longer resisting the flow of the universe. You have become one with the current. 10. The end of survival, the beginning of creation. The transition to illuminated blood marks the end of the survival era for the individual. When the body is no longer fighting itself, when the blood is clear and the heart is open, the massive amount of energy previously used for defense is now available for pure creativity and manifestation. This is the state of the magician. Your words carry the weight of your illuminated blood. They become spells or commands that the field obeys. Because your internal geometry is aligned with the universal geometry, your will and the universal will become indistinguishable. You are a conscious creator. The river of your life now flows toward the ocean of infinite possibility. You have cleaned the vessel, tuned the antenna, and ignited the fire. Now you must stand as the guardian of this light. The journey through the blood is complete, but the ascent of the central axis is just beginning. Truth. Through sacred geometry and somatic with the unified field of the universe.